Welcome to the latest episode of the B Movie Club. I'm your host, Kevin. This episode will be discussing the 1990 Western action adventure Quigley Down Under, starring Tom Selleck, Alan Rickman, Laura San Giacomo. The list goes on and on. It's an all-star cast. For those of you joining us for the first time, each week on the B Movie Club we discuss a different forgotten classic or guilty pleasure. You can give us suggestions about which movies you'd like to hear us discuss on our page on Facebook, Original B Movie Club. Give us the big thumbs up. Also, you can reach me on YouTube at Kevin D. That's me. Hit the subscribe button. It's absolutely free. You can also reach me on Twitter at KD9575. Thank you for joining us. Quigley Down Under. In this movie, it takes place in the 1870s, give or take, in the Australian outback. Famed long shooter, sniper type Matthew Quigley answers an ad from the United States, from the Old West. He comes out to Australia, and he meets with this shadowy figure played by Alan Rickman. His name is Marsden. He has some sort of a ranch out in the middle of the Australian countryside. Also, there's like a gang of cutthroats that seem to be working for him in some capacity. We don't know what the story is. Quigley meets with them. They talk, and at this point we discover that Marsden is hired, or wants to hire Matthew Quigley, because he's been having trouble with the local Aborigines. Trouble consists of they're just there, and he doesn't like them. He doesn't like them there. He wants to get rid of them. So because of the United States' stellar reputation dealing with indigenous people, he figures he can just hire an American marksman to come in and essentially just shoot the Aborigines. When Quigley finds out this is what he wants to do, he beats up Marsden. At that point, Marsden's gang grab Quigley and drag him off and dump him in the desert by himself. Although he isn't by himself, because earlier in the movie we meet Crazy Cora, played by Laura San Giacomo. Earlier in the movie, the gang of thugs that work for Marsden were basically picking up women to take out to Marsden's ranch to accommodate the rest of the thugs. And at that point, they also tried to grab Crazy Cora. She's called crazy because she has delusions. We find out later she basically lost her mind because earlier in her life, she was frightened by some local Native Americans coming into their house, knocking on the door. And while she was hiding, she accidentally smothered her only child. At that point, her husband showed up, discovered what she'd done, and put her on a one-way trip to Australia just to be done with her, essentially. So Cora has basically come after Quigley, has latched on to him, giving him the qualities of her husband, calling him her husband's name, things like that, because she's nuts, okay? So while they're wandering through the desert alone without much water or any way to take care of themselves, the local Aborigines appear and show up and take care of them, nurse them back to health. At this point, Quigley realizes that if he had any doubt, Marsden's the bad guy. His thugs are thugs. They're all bad. So he decides to basically defend the Aborigines against Marsden and his thugs. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Quigley, we discovered very early on when he's demonstrating his marksmanship that he is a marksman of ridiculous abilities, where he's able to shoot, 1,500 feet, quarter of a mile with his rifle, which is like the super schnazzy, it's called a Sharps Buffalo rifle. Evidently this is a real thing, and he's the master of it. I don't want to spoil everything, okay? There's a lot of, good Western fun. It takes place in Australia, like I said, so you have that kind of interesting thing going on there as well. There's dingoes. I didn't see any kangaroos, but, it's Australia. So there you have it. That is Quigley Down Under. Matthew Quigley, he's down under. He's in Australia. See, the title tells you what it's all about. So there you have it. This script was written in the late 70s. At that point, they were hoping Clint Eastwood or Steve McQueen might star in it. In fact, they were really close to starting to film with Steve McQueen when he got ill, and he died soon after. So the script was kind of shelved for a while. Later, they approached Harrison Ford to play the role. Harrison Ford was kind of like, I've already been kind of the outdoorsy adventure type, a little too close to Indiana Jones. I'm going to take a pass on that. They approached Tom Selleck in the mid-'80s. He was stuck. This is true. He was stuck because of Magnum P.I. Magnum P.I. was like, sorry, you're not doing any movies, you're doing this. Selleck had already lost out on the role of Indiana Jones for similar reasons. In fact, he was supposed to be Indiana Jones, not Harrison Ford. So later, when Magnum P.I. was no longer on the air, he went back to the production company and said, hey, I'm available now, can we do this movie? And they said, sure. They went back and basically had to rewrite the script, they had to change some things. At one point, David Mamet did his version of the script. They basically had to start from scratch, take it back to the original 1870s timeline. They actually hired an Australian author also to kind of bring more realism to what was going on in Australia at that time. They wanted to be a Western, but have kind of a different flavor to it. Alan Rickman had already been in Die Hard and was kind of establishing himself as kind of the evil British guy who pops up from time to time and does evil things. It wasn't until much later, late 90s, early 2000s, that he wasn't quite so evil anymore. And then Alan Rickman started to become kind of the sympathetic, lovable guy that we all know him to be now. Laura San Giacomo, or San Giacomo, if you will. She had done a few things. I believe she'd done Pretty Woman up to this point. Was not a household name at this point. Later she went on to do Just Shoot Me, which was that sitcom. That kind of put her on the map, if you will. What else can I tell you about this movie? In spite of all the wild animal violence that you see in the course of this movie, they went above and beyond to make sure that no animals were harmed in this movie. In scenes where dingoes, like Crazy Cora is holding off the dingoes with her rifle or her pistol, and you see the dingoes kind of... they were specially trained to do that. They didn't actually shoot any dingoes. I know you were all very concerned about that. Another scene, you see horses galloping off cliffs and things like that. Again, specially trained horses, and when the horses actually went off, they were mechanical horses. So no animals hurt. In fact, there are scenes, they went so far, there are scenes where the Aborigine people are like giving grubs to Quigley and Cora to eat, when they're nursing them back. They didn't use real grubs for that. They used little pieces of dough. Although I'm sure Tom Selleck was saying, hey, where are my grubs? I want realism. Give me the real grubs. So there you go. No animals were harmed. I know everyone was very, very concerned about that. Other things, this movie was not a financial success. It barely made the amount of money that they put into making it. Tom Selleck, as we all know, is a famous TV star, but he really never got into his groove as to becoming a movie star. I love Quigley Down Under. But other movies he had done, obviously, he was in Three Men and a Baby, which did reasonably well. Three Men and a Little Lady, I don't know how well that did. Then he started to do a lot of made-for-TV kind of things in the late 90s. He was in a few movies, but nothing that really kind of set the world on fire. So, what are you going to do? In one scene in the movie, Matthew Quigley is like shooting the bad guys from far away with his rifle. And he manages to like line up two guys and shoot through both of them and kill them both with one shot. that became kind of a popular expression that later snipers in the military refer to being able to shoot two guys with one shot as Quigley, as pulling a Quigley, if you will. So there you go. It's worked its way into America's consciousness, if you will. I really enjoy it. I think it's Tom Selleck at his finest. It's got a good story. At times it's a little preachy, but that's okay. It's all good fun. Alan Rickman is in his sinister great. Laura San Giacomo is crazy and pretty, I guess. But see, that's the thing. There's a line in the sand. It's like you can be crazy, but not so crazy that you're like your hair's all crazy and your clothes are covered with dirt. You still got to be kind of crazy hot, I guess, is what they're going for, and she does it. It is still currently streaming on Netflix, so rush out and see it if you have not already. It currently holds a 65% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. It got decidedly mixed reviews from critics. Like I said, I enjoy it. I mean, obviously it's not going to win any Academy Awards, but I think it's definitely a above average Western, if you will, neo-Western. So it has that going for it, which is nice. Next week, we're going to be going to the more of the comedic genre, coming of age comedy, Porky's, starring Kim Cattrall. She's in it in a small role, and a few other people you may or may not recognize. Alex Karras from Webster, he's in it. Famous Detroit Lions defensive tackle. So there you go. It is an all-star cast after all. I may have some special guests to review it, so you have that to look forward to as well. Another thing, and I know I've mentioned this before, we're looking for a new soundtrack for the B Movie Club. So if you know anybody who's willing to throw me a soundtrack for free, please let me know. I'll be happy to mention them each episode. So there you go. As you know, I end every episode with a totally out of context quote. And here it is. Lady, you're about half a bubble off plum. And that's for sure and for certain. I don't know what that means, but I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for joining us next week. Porky's. Be well.